Welcome. So, tonight we're going to be talking about loving what is. Loving what is. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is going to come back to this central theme. How blessed am I to have had so many opportunities to love what is tonight. As all of my perfect plans and all of my expectations went up in smoke, and this one thing over here went sideways, and this other thing over here went sideways, and then this other thing went, as if they're a cascading set of dominoes, just falling over one after another, and in each and every one being there going, and this too. Loving what is. Loving what is. So a slightly different tact. Normally I don't talk this way, but I feel like for this subject it's an important way to approach the subject. We'll see how it goes. This world that we live in is madness. It's insane. Over here on one hand we have wars being fought where children are being recruited into armies and handed guns, murdering each other. We have populations that are starving, groups of people that are dying of sickness. We have politicians who spend more time focusing on their own profit, their own sense of self, their own platform. They're so busy arguing with one another, nobody's busy solving any of the problems we have anymore. Our religious institutions are failing us left and right. We have nowhere else to go. The whole thing is just falling apart. It's just right there on the edge. Right there on the edge. And it just keeps going. It never ends. Now there's this new story here about some toxic waste dump that occurred and killing all the fish in the lagoon. Or over here we may have this particular set of stories that's arising about global warming and how, the whole thing is just, everything's melting and sea levels are rising. Our population continues to grow at an exponential, unsustainable rate. And on and on and on the list goes. And as a person, one looks at the whole thing and goes, why isn't anyone doing anything about it? Or, an even better one, if you just did it this way, right? The armchair quarterback. Well, if I were in charge, we'd just do this. Well, of course, you have that position, you hold that position, you say, if everyone just did it this way, it'd all be wonderful. And of course, the person next to you is going, well, if we just did it this way, wouldn't that be wonderful? And the next door neighbor has another opinion, and the person next to them has another opinion, and so on and so forth. And all it is a whole bunch of opinions, and that's what got us into the trouble in the first place. Everybody's so busy with answers. Everybody's so busy trying to figure it out. Everybody's so busy judging it and inflicting themselves upon it. Seeing it all as a great travesty, filled with injustice and suffering and torment. And it could all be better if we just did this one thing here. So easy to watch the news and get caught in that place. So easy to read the newspaper and get caught in that place. So easy to just listen to the stories that people tell and get caught in that place. So if having an opinion on it all and an answer about it all isn't the answer, then what is? Loving it all. Accepting it all as it is. As it is. All of its gory, hopeless, broken, unnecessary pain. And all of its glorious beauty. All. Loving it all. We get so caught up in the idea that it's suffering, that it's difficulty, and we don't like that. You know, the judging mind, the version, the person, the I that wants to be happy. The I that wants to be happy. Oh, the I that wants to be happy gets up in there and it just says, I want it to be like this. I want it to be like this. It isn't like that. And so our suffering gets created, right? That distance between the way things are and the way they want them to be. That's suffering. And we have this common approach. I talk about it all the time. Most kind of spiritually oriented people will say, well, we need to practice acceptance. We need to practice acceptance of the way that things are. And I say that's true up to a point. And that point is the point at which you realize that by saying, I'm accepting things as they are, there's still something in resistance. The one who says, I accept, is still there, pretending to be the one who has a choice. The one who says, I am in acceptance. I am in surrender. I am allowing. Really? Who? Which one is in this place? Which one? So there's something more that has to occur, and that something more, one way to kind of express it, there was an article I posted earlier this week or last week, and it was a copy of an old article. About 2 days after my awakening, I had written this article. And it was untying the knot. Untying the knot. The first part of it's really about, you take a piece of string and you tie these knots in the string, and 5 or 6 good knots, and you pull them tight. Then you get really angry at the string. Really angry at the string. Like summon up all the shit you're carrying around and blame it on the string. All of it. And really, really just make that thing the victim of all of it. And see how good you are at untying the knot, right? See how well you do trying to untie it, angry at it, just. And the second part is, okay, now look at the knot with great love. Look at the knot as something that is teaching you, showing you. It's something that you should love for the gift it has to offer you. This world that I described, the whole thing that's falling apart, it's the knot. That's the knot. Love it for what it has to teach us. Love it for what it has to show us. Love it for every single time that it points out to us, hey, look, you the one who thinks it's real, you the one who is the I trying to claim it all, you're not really real. You're sort of real, but not really real. You're as real as you think you are. And oh, by the way, thoughts aren't real, so guess what? You're on a slippery slope. How are you enjoying the ride so far? Do you want to continue to be an I? Do you want to continue to pretend to be someone? Yes? More. Here's more. Here's more. Until the I is so dissuaded of the notion that it even wants to be an I anymore, that it goes, okay, I give up. I'm done. I'm in surrender. And then a whole new set of things comes up that show us that that may not be enough, because there's still an I in that too. Now, next week, I'm going to be talking about stripping it all away, which is a very different approach to what I often talk about. Right? I generally tend to fill these segments with things that I think people will be interested in, that might be helpful, and I try to bring them into that place where there's no real I experiencing it. There's only one of us here, and we're all playing, the various roles that we're meant to play within the great harmony of motion that is moving. Serving that loving, intelligent awareness that is moving all things in the direction of its own purpose. But to really get at the core of who and what we are, to really understand it, is not so easily expressed in the kinds of words that I usually use. So next week, I'm going to use a whole different set of words that are about what we're not. Because we are beyond everything that can be put into words. We are beyond. loving what is allows us to have a celebratory, joyous relationship with the reality that we find ourselves in. Because if any single one of us looks at whatever difficulty, when we were talking through the meditation, whatever it is that came up and you said, this is what I'm resistant to, here's my difficulty, every single one of us has something that we're holding in that place. And if you look at it, if you really look at it, as something that is teaching you, showing you, helping you, guiding you, moving you through the illusory nature of your own concept of self so that you can be free of that which is suffering, that which is in difficulty, then that becomes a beautiful thing. It becomes a great gift. A great gift, a blessing. Our blessings in disguise. Oh, this horrible thing just happened. I wonder what's in this for me. Ah. Now, you don't have to necessarily like what it is. It's just like, there are these conversations we have about, family members, right? You always have to love family. You may not like them, but you always have to love them. They're family, right? So it's the same kind of relationship. You have to love what is. You have to be present with what is. You have to accept what is. Whatever language works best for you, but just being with what is, there's no real choice. You don't have to like it, but you have to be there because where are you going to go? This moment is here now, right here, always. This is the only moment there is, ever. And if you're standing in the moment and the moment is showing you something and you're like, I don't like it, where are you going to go? You going to go somewhere up here? Run away mentally? I mean, it's still happening. What crutch are you going to use to pretend, see no evil, hear no evil, that kind of thing, right? It's not happening, it's not happening, it's not happening. And when you open your eyes and it's still there, then you have to deal with it. What was that about? Loving what is can be something that we're forced to practice. Forced to practice. There's really no choice in the matter. Something that we are forced to practice in small ways and in large ways. In a large way is to, again, see and understand that the world that we live in is a conceptual world. It's something that's being projected from our own biases, from our own conditioning, from our own beliefs and our opinions. The conceptual world is a world that we're creating in fault. The conceptual world and the real world are completely different. Completely different. Leaving behind the conceptual world and living in the real world is the one where you go, okay, now it's this. And so all the big stuff, the wars and starvation and death and all that stuff, that's reality and that's here and it's what's got to be dealt with and there's no getting away from it. We're all on that path in some way, shape, or form. We're all going to get to the end and go, oh. Loving what is the thing that can see us through the difficult moments. There was a lovely dialogue that I was reading about. Not a dialogue necessarily, but a story. I saw it in a book, I think, and I also heard it a couple of times listening to a couple of different talks. It's quite beautiful. And some of you may be familiar with it. There was a monk living in a small village. And this monk, he had his own little monastery, his own little space that he was in. And there was a girl in the village who became pregnant. And, everybody's very upset that this young girl is pregnant. And so she says, it's the monks. The monk did it. And so the whole village rises up against the monk. I mean, they are angry. They are just blaspheming him left and right. They want nothing to do with him. They're just... And they come marching up with the baby. The baby's born, and they come marching up with the baby, and they hand him the baby. He goes, this is your responsibility. He goes, also. And then years go by, and the young girl is on her deathbed, and she's close to the end, and she gives one of those deathbed confessions. And she says, well, it wasn't really the monk's baby. It was the fisherman's baby. He just didn't want to tell anybody. So all the villagers, they're like, oh, goodness. They come up to the monk, and they're saying to the monk, we're so sorry, And I mean, the kid's 15 years old at this point or something, we want to take the kid back. You know, we're sorry we hoisted him on you, and we're ready to take him back. We're so sorry this whole thing. And he just goes, oh, so. It didn't matter. Either way, just because when we reach a certain point in this journey and we understand who and what we are and how and what this is and how it's all operating and how it's all interconnected and intertwined and how it is empty of self, empty of a conceptual of anything that you can put words to. When you begin to understand how it's all woven together within conscious awareness, how it all arises and falls away, how it's all love given form to serve a purpose. When you see the whole dynamic motion, the whole nature of reality as it is, now, here, in this place, this is the moment. This is the role. This is the movement. This too. This too, this too, this too. And it doesn't matter whether it's a beautiful unfolding moment or the shittiest moment you've ever had in your life. This is the basic essence of equanimity that the Buddha spoke so often about. One of the key criteria of what we call enlightenment, which is nothing more than another concept. Loving what is isn't necessarily grabbing a hold of everything in a way that says, oh, I'm just gonna embrace it all with open arms and I'm not gonna question it. I mean, it's not anything like that. Again, love. We talked last week. We were talking about relationships. Love is a concept, and if we're trying to serve the concept, we're not necessarily serving reality. It's more about this is here now, and this is of me. This is of me. I am this. I am the form. I am the one in the form trying to own the form. I am the one that is beyond the form. I am the manifestation of what is coming forward and demanding attention. I am the distance between the two. I am the experience of it all. Being able to embrace that. And to recognize all of it as self. To embrace that and recognize all of it as self. And in that, understanding that trying to be in resistance to something isn't going to do anything. It's all you. It's just, even the resistance itself is part of the flow, part of the process. When you find yourself in that place and you go, I don't like this, that's meant to serve its own purpose too. And yet it's so funny how we get twisted around on these things. I've mentioned this before. The Buddha would talk about the two darts, right? You have an experience, something you don't like, some event that occurs, and you're hit with the first dart. And then you start to react to it from that mental place. You start telling yourself a story about it, and that's the second dart. The first dart is enough. You can let go of the thing that gets you into that place where you're struck again by the same thing. There's another aspect to this, and one of the reasons why I say, acceptance, there's absolutely acceptance. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It just, within acceptance is that seed of resistance that's still there. I'm accepting, right? There's still that. I'm loving is still another part of it. But when you understand, no, I am love and there's no me in it and I can embrace the whole thing as myself, then it's a different place. But one of the things that happens within the language of acceptance or the experience of acceptance is we can unintentionally create a new identity as the martyr, right? We can create within our experience the new version of ourselves that says, well, I surrender, I give up, but doesn't really, right? There's resistance, frustration, and anger right beneath the surface of I accept. I accept it because I'm supposed to. I accept it because I read it in a book. I accept it because I heard a teacher say it. I accept it because, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. Oh yeah, I accept it. Oh yeah. And there's this bubbling, volcano of emotion that sits right underneath acceptance that shows us that our acceptance is maybe perhaps limited. Resentment begins to come from that place. And many of us who have found ourselves, kind of going, well, I'm supposed to accept it, or I will accept it, or I don't like it, but I'm going to just do it because I have to. I don't have a choice in the matter. These things, they build up over time. They build up over time. If they come up in a relationship we have with someone, they get added to the debt that relationship carries. When they get added to a situation, a recurring situation, they get added to the debt that situation has. If it's your job, your work, whatever it is, it accumulates over time. Well, this too. Yep, I'm in acceptance. That's why it's not enough. It has to be something that looks at it more from that place of understanding, that place of spacious awareness. It's not an active doing. Loving what is not an active doing. It is that movement within the experience of being that encompasses it, embraces it, invites it in, and says, this too. So I'm kind of looping back on the thing a little bit, but it's important to recognize that a continuity that arises from an acceptance, a type of acceptance that isn't necessarily real. The kind of acceptance that comes from that place of I. It doesn't free us. And ultimately, that's the goal of the true spiritual path. It isn't, I want to be happy all the time. It isn't that. It can't be that. Because that doesn't exist. It's being able to hold happiness and sadness in the same way. To see them as two sides of the same coin and recognize there is no coin. To be fully present with things as they are. Loving what is because it's all you. So I'm sure I can come up with more stuff, but it'll just be on the same path, the same things kind of repeated over and over again. And this talk and the next talk that I'm doing, they're really kind of meant to go together. Because on this side, it's more the positive embracing, right? Okay, it's basically, if I'm going to be a person, if I'm going to play the role of a person, I'm going to use all the things that are arising in the experience of being a person in order to free myself. Whereas next week, I'm going to talk about negating all of the things that we are, so that we're no longer holding on to the things that aren't real, the things that we believe, the things that we think that keep us trapped. So this talk is about a way to open ourselves up so that we can create freedom. And next week is about, well, it's all keeping you trapped. So two different ways of looking at the same subject. I have more things to say on this, but I'll open it up and we can talk and have some dialogue around some of these things. I'm curious what other people's experiences of kind of this play of resistance and acceptance. Folks have things that they want to share about that kind of experience, and then other things that maybe you've tried in your own experience that have maybe been in line with some of the things that I'm talking about here. Curious.
I'm Kate. First of all, I really like that visualization during the meditation of just stepping away from what we were resistant to. That very quickly, okay, put me back into that conscious, just space, spaciousness. That was a good tool, and I'm sure I'll use that again. And I still on occasion find myself in resistance. It's amazing to me though how infrequent that is now, that I'm in resistance to things. But when I find that feeling arising of that tense, I'm like that person, I don't like this situation. To me, it is a great teacher. Like you said, things were great teachers, and me too. That first I have to, well, who is in resistance to this? Because there really isn't anybody here, all right? So it's the ego, the mind, that's just telling me a story. So then well, where did this story start? What was it that started this story going on in my head? Because I can grow it into a big thing in no time.
Right.
So if I kind of step back and go, what was occurring at the moment that that I started telling myself this story? And then to just kind of sit with that, and think of, well, I have to remember that everything is exactly the way that it's supposed to be, whether it's good, whether it's bad. And it just can't be any other way. It can't be any other way than exactly the way that it is. It's supposed to be. And usually by the time I'm telling myself this story, the moment that was irritating me has long passed. So,
sure.
It's not, and then, I think, well, is it happening right now at this very moment? No. So I know that it's just a story, and that is helpful to me, just to kind of go through that process of, hey, who is it that's irritated and telling me this story? And that's an illusion. The story is always an illusion, not a tell myself. I don't know, it's just wonderful to me how I used to be so caught up in my mind and these stories, and now to be free of that, or able to quickly realize it for what it is, an illusion, is wonderful. So that's kind of the process I go through. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there was something you brought up, and I kind of alluded to it, at a certain point there, but I didn't go into it very much. And that is, recognizing that when resistance is there, it too is meant to serve its own purpose, right? So it becomes this interesting play when you really start to pay attention. You end up in these places where you look, oh look, I'm resistant to resistance, right? That can become, when you develop your awareness enough to be able to really see the play of thought, to see the stories unfolding, and to really just like watch the whole thing as a dance. It's really interesting. There's resistance. Oh, look, there it is. I'm in resistance. Oh, who's in resistance? Oh, well, it's a story. The story of me is what's in resistance to the reality. And, oh, look, I don't want to be in resistance. Oh, so now I'm in resistance to resistance. You go, oh, look, that too. This is really interesting. And you end up just watching the whole thing like it just stacks up. And it's like at a certain point within awareness, you step out of the whole thing. You step back from the whole thing and you watch it collapse. You just watch the whole thing fall apart. And it becomes this amusement. It's almost like you don't pursue it because it's entertaining, because that's, the ego likes to do that, but more just that practice of being able to see how we create that conceptual world, and how we're able to step back from the concept of self and the conceptual world. Just everything kind of it falls down and what you're left with is just the presence of being, that spaciousness beyond the mind, and there's no more story. There's just quiet. There's just quiet. Being in resistance to resistance is a lovely, it's one of those little things that's really fun to play with, to see how we do these things to ourselves, how we layer them on. That's why it's always important, in these conversations to be very clear about, words cannot communicate the essence of what's beneath them. Words are, I'm using crayons to paint the Mona Lisa. And that's the way it is for any being who's really trying to communicate the essence of what this is. You can't use words for it. That's why, like I said, next week we're going to talk about all the things it's not. All the things it's not. It'll actually be easier. But thank you for sharing, because that's lovely. I mean, that all things are always exactly as they should be. There is, this whole thing, we with our judging minds, we're like, but it shouldn't be this way, and it shouldn't be this way, and it shouldn't be this way. And you can should yourself to death. It doesn't change the way things are. And if you want to roll up your sleeves and get deep into it and change the world, by all means do it. Just know that, you're going to be over here trying to do it your way from this angle, and there's going to be somebody else in opposition to what you're trying to do. And it's just going to be that way. And it's okay, within the world. That's fine. That's the play of things within the world. But to do so in a way where, we're not so attached to, attached to the role that we're playing, or attached to the outcome that we desire, that kind of stuff. Just, I'm here and I'm doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing. But all things are always exactly as they should be, even those moments where we're in resistance, those moments when we're in acceptance and not really accepting, those moments when we are in that spaciousness and we are embracing what's happening with love, we are being fully present in reality as it is. All of that doesn't matter what it looks like. Again, conscious or unconscious, doesn't matter. Everything's unfolding absolutely perfectly, just as it's meant to. Just as it's meant to. It's the intellectual mind, the conceptual mind that doesn't like that, wants to, no, there's something, no, that doesn't make sense. And that's the whole nature of ego. The I that's in opposition to reality as it is. So thank you for sharing that. That brings up some other important factors in the conversation. And what I was saying earlier is, also the small things, the large things and the small things. Sometimes the small things have a way of catching us off guard. It's the way they add up so quickly that is what really creates weight. It might be in the space of 30 minutes, you have 15 different things go sideways. And you just, okay, I can deal with these 3. All right, I guess this 4th one, I'm okay with that. And then you get to a point, after the 5th or 6th thing, you're like, if you give me one more damn thing, I'm going to lose my shit. And then that other thing comes. You're like, all right, I'm still going to hold on. But the beautiful thing about operating from this place, this place of understanding, when you really have reached into the truth of who and what we are, it doesn't matter what's happening. Some small part of you, it doesn't matter how small, it doesn't matter what size the sliver of conscious awareness is. Something in your experience is saying, it's all okay. Don't worry about it. I know it seems nuts, and you would be well within your right as a person to freak out, to blow your top, to start swinging. But you're not a person, so don't worry about it. There's something there that once you've seen it for yourself, it never goes away. It's always there. It's like you're being held. You're being held in these loving arms of conscious awareness that are reminding you, I'm moving you on the board. I am shifting you in the direction that I need you to move. And it happens to include all these shitty moments right now. But don't worry about it. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Just be present. We'll get through this. I promise. And if not, well, there's never an if not, though. You know, it's just getting to the other side of whatever it is. And it doesn't matter what it is, because it's only as real as we make it. All of it. So those little things, those are the, the big things, it can be easier with the big things to kind of like tune them out, to shut them down, and say, I'm just not paying attention. But those little things, man, they just grate at us. They grate at us. But it doesn't matter whether they're big things or little things. They're all practice, and that's one of the beautiful things. That's one of the most important aspects of loving what is, to embrace them as, I am being taught, I am being shown, I am receiving a gift in this moment to help free myself of myself. It's all meant to free myself so that I can free myself of myself. Anything else? Other comments or thoughts?
Well, a lot of times when you have that one thing that's bothering you, it's your perception that's the problem. Okay, so
Yep.
it's very helpful. I study Course in Miracles, and one of the tools that they have there is to call on your higher self, call on the Holy Spirit, change my perception of this, help me see the truth of what it really is.
Right.
Okay, rather than my twisted way of looking at it. And it does help a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's whatever language we use, right? The fact that we're tapping into something that is larger than we are, something that knows. That something is right here. That something is right here. But that something that knows, that allows us to be okay, even if we don't like it. To be okay, even if we don't like it. So tools like things like that come out of the Course in Miracles, they're wonderful tools. They're wonderful tools, and they can get us, they can get us to a certain point in our journey, I love how what I've learned over the course of this last year and a half is that, we are always given exactly what we need, what we're ready for. And, all of these different spiritual methods and spiritual practices, all these different teachings and ways in which we are being instructed or guided or however it may appear, they're all hats. They're all hats, and you wear it for as long as you need to, and then when you're ready for something new, you're given a different hat. Oh, try this on now, try this on now, try this on now. The Course in Miracles has a lot of really wonderful tools within it that fit that bill. Things that can help us move through certain stages. Yeah. What else?
Me?
Yeah?
No.
Keep looking at me. You have something to say?
You always have something to say. In a great
That
way,
is
in a great
true.
way. Only the privacy. No, I really appreciate it. It was awesome, what we said. I'll kind of break things down to simplistic and kind of reminded of what the great spiritual leader John Lennon said when you were talking, is life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans.
Yeah.
And so often,
Yeah.
I have this goal in this direction that I'm gonna go.
Right.
And then next thing you know, you're over here. You're like, what happened?
Right.
You know what? You're walking your path. Slow down. Look around you. See what's, you've been leading this great life. You've been doing this, look at you. You're doing wonderful. It's not over here. It's over here. Just walk the path.
Right.
And it's funny because when you started speaking, I kind of wrote that down. To me, my whole life for 40 some odd years, I've always been like, this is where I need to be. And next thing you know, I'm over here. and I'm just as happy over here as I ever would have been over here.
Mhm.
You know, so many people get tied up in this, oh, I need to be this, I need to be that, I need to be this. And life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. And if you don't stop and focus on what's going on right in front of you, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss everything around you.
Now is the only moment we have.
Now is the moment.
That's it. It's all there really is. The rest of it is a projection.
Absolutely.
The rest of it is, you know, and there are a couple of things that come up with that, right? One is you know, the way in which we trap ourselves in identity and define success, and, you know, it becomes that you know, that expectation that leads us nowhere, right? Because you can think, this is what I want, this is where I want to be, this is what has to happen, and then when you don't get there for whatever reason, right, it's all these disappointments and all these setbacks. Where if you are just really like, well, I have an intention, I have a direction, I mean, my life is moving this way and I'm moving with it. But you're moving in a way that's open-minded and all-embracing and allowing, and just, you know, in a place where it's just loving what is, just loving what is. It's amazing how we're surprised beyond our expectations. We're surprised by the beauty that we are gifted with when we stop asking for what we think we want and start allowing what we really need to find its way into our own experience, into our own journey. And the other thing that comes up is, you know, how interesting it is how quickly and easily we get caught, especially in this society, on what we don't have when we have so much. We have so much. I mean, we go through this with the twins all the time. So it's like, we have these wonderful reminders all the time, you know, because, you know, when you're a small child, right, you want everything. It's just, you know, it's all shiny and it's all pretty and it's all new, and it's like, I just want it and I want it and I want it. That's what we do. Or, you know, we're doing that because we want to experience everything when we're that age. We just want to invite it all in, and I want this and this and this and this. But, you know, we as adults, we still do it. We just get to that place where we're like, you know, I want this or I don't want that. And when we don't get what we want, or we do get what we don't want, we get into this place where we're in resistance, and we get locked in this battle with one aspect of the reality we're in, when the rest of our life could be completely beautiful. It's like, man, you know, I had these 15 things that I wanted to do with my life. It was my bucket list. I got 14 of them done, but damn it, this one thing, my life sucks. My life sucks because it's one thing. And we're like little toddlers, like, you know, just throwing a temper tantrum over one thing. And the reality is, if we let go of the one thing, chances are we would be pleasantly surprised by what comes forth from the letting go. The space we create for something that we could never have expected. I mean, when I look at my life 2 years ago, before my awakening, the atheist asshole who was busy telling everybody what to do all the time, that person could never have imagined this person sitting here. All of that had to go away for this to happen. But that person would never have understood, would never have allowed for the possibility that there was anything other than my plan. I've got it. I've got it all written down. I got my checklist. I got my, you know, I've got my map. I've got the whole thing. It's in 2010, I'm going to do this. In 2011, it's going to be this. 2015, I'm going to be here. 2020, I'm going to have this. Here's the house. Here's the car. Here's the kids. Here's the whole thing. I've got it all. Yep. I'm good. I'm good. And then being disappointed each and every time something didn't work out.
About the expectations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's that understanding. This goes into a little bit deeper place, right? But it's that understanding that, you know, the whole conceptual self, it's got an egoic quality to it that's here in the moment trying to own everything, but most of it exists within the continuity of thought, within the continuity, the continuous stream of what we see as I that extends into the past, and the continuous stream of I that we're projecting out into the future. And all of that future stuff, all that expectation, all of the ways in which we're lying to ourselves and lying to others about what tomorrow will bring, there's so much potential suffering in that. And the whole thing is occurring in thought. And when we're in that place where we're just locked into our expectation, this is what I wanted. You know, I didn't get it. Being able to say, okay, and move on to the next thing, or going back into toddler mode, right? Just throwing the little temper tantrum. There's like a couple of car commercials or something like that, or I think it's an insurance commercial where they have people who are, they're kids. They show kids like throwing their cell phones down and slamming doors and all kinds of stuff, but then they show that they're really adults who are behaving this way. And it's like, we all do that to some level, until we get to that place where we recognize that that doesn't serve us. Usually when we get into that place, what we end up creating for ourselves is so much worse than what we stepped into. If we stepped into something in a place of resistance, we make it worse. We turn a molehill into a mountain. We just like add to it. And if we're adding to it, again, all things are always as they should be, but my goodness, we have the opportunity here now in this moment always to work with sincerity and earnestness and clarity of mind in the direction of freeing ourselves from thought, to collapse the mind into the presence of being and be fully present as we truly are. That unconditioned essence of self. The I am before it becomes somebody. There's no yesterday. There is no tomorrow. That's all in thought. And if you just, when the mind is quiet and still and silent, and we are settled into the presence of being, when we're fully there, what expectation? There's no tomorrow. People can come at you left and right and go, what about this? What about this? What about this? And you go, I don't know. But you need to know. Really? I don't know. But I want you to know. Well, that seems to be about you. I don't know. And it doesn't mean we're not practical in terms of how we engage in our lives. It's just we can't get caught on expectation. We can't hold on to it. We can't cling to it, right? That's the real issue. Clinging to what we think it should be about. Clinging to what we want. Clinging to what we think we need. All this stuff happening in thought. Clinging.
What is the interaction between, or the difference, I don't know how to verbalize it, but like between acceptance and surrendering? You know, it just seems like I'm accepting of, and I surrender to. But however, surrender seems to be a part of accepting, and is accepting passive?
That's a good question. So surrender depends on how you're doing it, and it depends on where you're doing it from. Again, the challenge with these concepts is they're good concepts to work with as we're working, right, within our concept of self, and we're working through the steps of freeing ourselves. They're good concepts to work with. It's just there's that switch at a certain point where the I that is in surrender, where the I that is in acceptance falls away. And there is the presence of being. There is the harmony of motion. There is the movement of things. There's it's just this. It's just this. Now, as far as acceptance and surrender, you know, again, I said this last week too, right? Each and every one of us has to work within our own experience to figure out, you know, how far are we willing to go? And as with everything else, acceptance and surrender will ultimately fail us in some way, in a way that allows us to see things differently, to get to that place where the self, the I that's in acceptance, the I that's in surrender falls away. Then we have a whole new relationship with what those words mean. Surrender from that place is more of recognizing within the presence of being, there's this little thing floating around called me. I mean, there's this whole huge spacious experience of being, but somewhere there's this little thing bouncing around inside of it called me. And surrender from that place is understanding that whenever you jump into the me state, right, you find yourself standing in me, and you're able to say, all right, I, the me that I'm in, needs to surrender to the reality of that which is larger than I am. Something that needs to surrender to the reality of the spaciousness. Something that needs to surrender to the reality of life. It's the ego that it's still there as the small voice that holds no sway, whispering in your ear. And you're able to say, I'm not listening anymore. I really appreciate, and I love you. I absolutely, all of our love needs to go into holding that one, that me, right? Holding the me in that spacious, loving awareness. But that is the kind of surrender, that I generally tend to talk about, that kind of surrender. It's not so much the I surrender, like I give up, like I'm a battlefield general handing over my saber to the enemy and saying, we just didn't have enough troops, and so I guess I lost. It isn't that, right? Because when we put ourselves in that place, it's a very different experience. It's a very different experience. And acceptance, it's kind of got the same essence to it. It's just a question of, where are we in our relationship to our concept of acceptance, what it is that we're accepting, and who it is that we are that's doing the accepting. And, there's a line we have to play within our own experience. And we have to basically find ourselves in a situation and say, all right, here's what I like about the situation, here's what I don't like about the situation. Draw a line. Cross our line and see how much further we can get. All right, now this is not okay, this is okay. And draw another line. This is okay, this is not okay. Draw another line. Eventually, we start to really figure out what's really important to us. What's really important to us. And it isn't stuff that comes from ego so much as it is a releasing of all those things that come from ego, because we see that they don't serve us. I drew my line here, and I had this situation, and it kept beating on me, and I realized that I needed to surrender that part of myself. Not that I necessarily needed to draw more lines, but recognizing that I was just extending the journey beyond need by crossing this line and crossing this line and crossing this line. Each time I was in acceptance, each time I was in surrender, it was some small part of my egoic concept of self that was being chipped away at, so that I can get to this place where I now release that part of myself entirely, because I know, at least at some level, I see within myself some facet of my own being. And that creates a little bit of freedom, a little bit of spaciousness, which then is what we use to start looking at, the me that's bouncing around. So acceptance and surrender, they're very difficult concepts. It's all just surrender as a person, or surrender from the position of the absolute that knows that there's no surrender necessary. That all things are as they should be, and can be in that paradox at the same time. It can be in that place. I mean, the whole thing is walking the line, right? 1 foot in the realm of illusion, 1 foot in the realm of truth, walking with balance, a foot in each world. I listened to something the other day that said, might have been yesterday. It was Jack Kornfeld, one of the Buddhist teachers. And he was saying, it was something along the lines of, in order to do this thing, you have to remember your spiritual teachings and your social security number at the same time. You have to hold both at the same time. And a lot of the stuff that we have to figure out along the way is what we need, what serves us and what doesn't. That's really what it comes down to, what serves us and what doesn't. And when we see ourselves in difficulty, being able to realize the difficulty serves us. The difficulty serves us. We were talking in the car, right? Getting to that place where the difficulty will be present for as long as it needs to be there. And once you no longer need the difficulty, you will find yourself free of it in whatever way that takes, in whatever shape that takes. Either, the difficulty will disappear from your life because whatever was causing the difficulty will move away, or the difficulty will dissolve because the one who thought it was difficult no longer sees it that way, recognizes and holds it in a different way, and is open and accepting and loving what is in a way that says, you're no longer, it's no longer like sandpaper, no longer like nails on a chalkboard. Now when I hear the nails on the chalkboard, to me it's a sweet song. I owe something to the song. Thanks, gratitude, appreciation for what it taught me about who and what I am, and showed me how to free myself. And then when you have those experiences and you can apply them to, oh, now I'm in this difficulty, I wonder if it'll be the same way. Well, it will. On the other side of that difficulty, you'll find the same sweet music being played. Can you bring that spaciousness to the difficulties that you find yourself in this moment? That's the practice. That's part of it. And that's one of those things that helps us get through the difficult moments, being able to say, all right, I'm in this. I'm in this. I'm right here in it. My pain, my difficulty, my suffering, it's right here. I'm not going anywhere because I need it until I don't need it anymore. There was another story that I heard, again, I think it was from Jack Kornfield. It was probably on the same lecture I was listening to. But he was talking about a woman who was at a monastery. She was going to go, and she had been meditating for years, and she still hadn't found enlightenment. She was trying to figure out, how do I find enlightenment? So she asked the monk, she said, hey, I know there's a shack at the top of the mountain, and I'm going to go up to the mountain, and I'm going to spend some time there. I need to do something differently. I'm going to go up there, I'm going to spend some time there. Does that sound okay to you? And the monk said, sure, go do what you need to do. And as she was going up the mountain, she ran into this old man. He was carrying, some things on his shoulders, one of those sticks with, water or something. He's walking down the mountain. They converse for a few moments, and she's like, well, you seem like you have some wisdom. Do you know anything about this enlightenment thing? And he goes, what would you like to know? She goes, well, what is enlightenment? And he drops what he was carrying. She got it right there on the spot. She got it. She understood completely. She was like, wow, that's it. And then she looks at him, she goes, what now? And he picked it all back up again. And he just kept going down the mountain. We pick up and we put down the weight over and over and over again, recognizing that that is part of it. Picking up and putting down the weight is part of it. So difficulty, surrender, resistance, acceptance, all these things, we're just playing with the notion, really. We're just playing with the notion. It's just, there's something within these words that points at a practice that helps us understand these things more clearly. And when we understand them more clearly, then we find ourselves in a different place, serving a different purpose. And that I used to talk about things, all things, there's a continuum. There's a continuum. Those of us who are the most asleep, those of us who really don't get any of it, we're just busy doing our thing as the small self. We're usually doing, a lot of difficulty, creating a lot of problems for people. And then there are those who are the most awake, and we're here, just saving the world. We've got Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and, all these wonderful enlightened beings and teachers who are just, making beautiful things happen in the world. But the reality is that we are all on both sides of the continuum and everywhere in between every day, depending upon this moment. Oh, I'm over here. Oh, I'm over here. Oh, I'm over here. Oh, I'm over here. Recognizing that none of that is us. None of it's me. None of it's I. It's like the conversation I was having with one of the kids last night. With some difficulty, and the conversation we were having, she goes, I'm horrible. I said, no, dear. No, sweetheart. Sometimes your behavior can be a little bit problematic, but you are not your behavior. Behavior can be changed. And so that's the thing, right? We can shift our behavior, we can shift our thinking, we can shift our behaviors, and we can be the change we want to see in the world, but we have to work within ourselves in order to do that. And that's what the surrender and the acceptance and the loving and all of that is. That's what putting down the load and picking up the load and being fully present and being not fully present. You know, falling into those places where, look, I'm asleep again. Oh, look, now I'm waking up. Oh, look, I'm asleep again. Oh, now I'm waking up. And just over and over and over again, recognizing this too. This too. Always moving with that without getting caught on it. Without getting caught in that place where you're like, my goodness, yesterday I was such a dick. Oh my goodness, how could I have possibly been like that? Oh, I did it all wrong. I broke everything. I'm going to have to go through all this forgiveness work. And what is that? No. I mean, you don't move from a place where you're purposely doing things to people that are not kind. I've said before, love and kindness. That's the measure. That's the direction we move all things in. But when we find ourselves in a place where we didn't exactly move with love and kindness, understand that too served its own purpose. Don't get caught on it. Just leave it behind. Because that's where guilt and shame and regret come from, and those don't serve us either. They don't serve us either. Because that becomes a new identity. Oh, I'm this person that gets it wrong all the time. I'm this person that does all these bad things. Well, now I'm going to prove to myself that I'm this person. It just becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. And again, the weight, all these things, they add up. And it's when we can approach each moment from the perspective of, there's nothing here. There's eyes seeing. There's a mouth speaking. There are thoughts thinking. It's just this expression. Just this expression. And I don't need to own any of it. Doesn't give me a license to be a dick, but I don't need to own any of it. Let it go. Let it go and move forward, loving what is from one moment to the next. Ah, this too. Ah, so. What else? I'm trying to think if there was anything else I came across this week. Yeah, of course.
I think one thing that and it's funny that you told that story about the lady. I can remember about 3 weeks after my awakening, I came and met with you and kind of shared the experience, and I was like, well, now what? That's exactly what that story was. I was like, well, what now? You know, what do I do now? But, I was graced with about 2 weeks or so of just floating in this beautiful space after that happened. And then I kind of, I was really, and then I kind of was really struggling to find that balance of having one foot in the illusion and one foot in the awakening. And I think I'm getting there, it's getting better. But I think what I struggle with now is, it seems like some people that I come in contact with seem to think or have this perception that I'm still just kind of like floating around and not really making any kind of contribution or like anything like that. And I think to see them struggling with that concept is sometimes difficult for me because it causes them pain.
Sure, right.
And so that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now. I think that sometimes it can come across as I don't care, and that's not what it is. It's just that I'm just present in the moment. I don't really feel any need to make it go this way or that way.
That's right.
But I think that it can come across as, I don't care. So I don't know. That's kind of I think what I'm having trouble accepting, I guess, right now is that other people's concepts of what this is or what I should be doing with it,
right,
is difficult. So I don't know.
So the great thing, those kinds of lessons, right? Those are really powerful ways of helping us stand in our truth. Stand in our truth. Because I know that there was a period of time during which, and I think to a certain extent still, people have these ideas, the notions, right? They think, well, when you awaken, it's all about love. This brings up another story. And I'm not going to get this one right. I'm not going to get this one right because I don't remember the story very well. But I love it. It's beautiful. So again, another monk story. So there's this student, and he's been working with this monk for a while. And he's been working for quite some time, and he's gotten to a pretty good place, and he's ready to go off into the world, and so he does so. And he makes a commitment to the monk, hey, every month I'll write you a letter, and I will share with you my spiritual progress. And the monk goes, great. Great. So the first month, the monk gets a letter from the student, and the letter is something like, everything is oneness. And the monk is like, ugh, and he balls it up and he throws it away. The next month, he gets something that says, nothing is born and nothing dies. And the monk throws up his hands in exasperation. He's like, ah! He balls it up and he throws it away. And the next month, another letter comes, and it says, everything is love. It is all love. Love, love, love. And the monk is just like, ugh! And he's like ready to vomit. He's just like, will you ever get it? And then a few months go by, and the monk doesn't hear from the student for a while. And eventually the monk says, like after a year has passed, the monk writes to the student. He says, hey, you said that you were going to write me and let me know how your spiritual progress is going. And so I'm curious, do you have anything to report? Where are you at in your spiritual journey? And the student writes back, who cares what you think? And the monk goes, finally, he gets it. And that's the reality, right? It's that understanding that people's notions of what awakening is, it's ill-conceived because you don't understand until you've had the experience of awakening what it really means. There isn't a person in the awakening. And that's what people do. You can't describe to somebody. I was asking one of the kids in the car, because we were trying to keep them busy so they wouldn't ask all the questions, but I said, how would you describe to a person who's been blind since birth what the color blue is? That's what it is. To explain the awakened experience to someone who hasn't had it, it is describe the color blue to a person who has been blind since birth. Try. Well, it's like the sky. I don't know. I've never seen the sky. What does that mean? Well, it's like it's all you can do is use comparatives. But there's no real way to say, blue is cold. Well, what does that mean? Like, you're using comparatives and narratives and words to try to describe something that the other person, because they've never had the experience, they can't understand what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. That's why compassion is such a huge part of this. And that's part of why there is that sense of detachment. I know within my own experience that I have learned very sharply, I cannot help anybody who doesn't want it. And wanting it is an aspect. Wanting it is a dynamic within the movement of things. But if I walk up to the people on the side of the street and I say, it's all love given form to serve a purpose, and if you just let go of your conceptual self, the whole world will melt away and everything will be beautiful. And they'll be like, what drugs are you on, man?
Yeah.
And why can't I have some?
Right. Yeah, that's a good
I know, maybe this might help, because I've studied people that have had awakenings, and I don't have it, okay? But I know the qualities, the traits, the views, and where they function from, but I don't, okay? And so I'm able to observe those with the awakening in relations to those that don't. And I also see that it's a process of once Jack Kornfield, he wrote that book after the ecstasy, the laundry.
Right.
Okay? I mean, there's a transition period of knowing how to verbalize your experience to those that don't understand it.
Adyashanti says it takes about 10 years to get enlightenment sorted out.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, because,
I got a great skill.
because when you have one person that still exists and they thrive and all their understanding is from a sense of duality, which is ego driven, and you have a person which has ceased to exist in that realm, there's going to be a disconnection.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I can
Right.
see where it's very easily to, and for somebody, for example, I understand it, so therefore I can speak the language. You know? But imagine like somebody that goes from one day to the next morning is like, hey, I speak Greek. Well, how? It's like, well, it's easy, just speak it.
Right.
What do you mean? Just cease trying to learn. And you will speak, you know, it's like, that's really what it sounds like. You know, so because I don't have it also, when I watch it and I see that, it's like, in a way, it's kind of like, is that because when I see that separation that occurs,
Mhm.
it's like, it's not really something that I want. However, okay, because I still have duality going on and I have attachments, and that's really what's getting in the way of actually getting it.
Right.
Okay, I know it, and that's the game that I'm still dancing with.
Sure.
I'm totally aware, you know? So because of the fact that I'm still looking at it as a separate thing, tells me that I don't have it.
But you do, and that's the beautiful thing.
Yeah, well, I'll
That's the
just keep
beautiful thing.
peeling the onion.
But it is that switch, there is that switch within awareness, within consciousness, when we're able to step back from the whole thing. I mean, it really is, it's so interesting. When you have it, it's so simple. It's so simple. You're like, really? I know I've said this before, but when it happens, it's just like, that's what this was all about? Really? But it's just, you know, you're stepping back into the position of the observer, and you see the person. And eventually, as the journey deepens, the observer falls away too. There's no person, there's no observer, there's no witness, it's all just the same stuff. But the stuff that you're talking about right now, that situation that you find yourself in, it's very important to recognize that that's their work. Anybody who comes to you or enters into your space or puts their projections upon you, your job is just to say, okay. None of it's about you. And that's what you'll find, you know, as you go through this stage, right? As you go through this stage where you find yourself hammered on from many different directions with people's projections. And ultimately you get to that place where you recognize, I don't need people's validation, I don't need people's acceptance, I don't need them to understand any of what's happening. I know where I am. I know where I am. And any sense of separation or division that they may have is in them. It's in them. Because it's only a person sees separation and division to begin with. You and I are sitting at the root of our being. We're all sitting at the root of our being. But you're sitting there with open eyes and going, it's just this. And you have a whole bunch of people who are still playing the role of a person who are saying, I don't get it. I thought it was supposed to be this way. Why don't you behave the way I think you should? And you just go, okay, that's all you can do. That's why we talked, right? So much of compassion. It's not, when people say it's all love, no, it's not all love. If you came into it and you had that experience of it's all love, that's a stage. That's a stage of the process. It is compassion. It is understanding that we are all moving in the same direction. We're all moving in the same direction, and it's freedom for everyone at some point, in some way, in some shape or form. It's freedom for everybody. But not everybody's ready for it yet. For whatever reason, we're not all in the same place. We're all taking our own unique journey. And while I may have had this experience, others have not, and it's okay. My job is to hold those who have not had it with compassion. My job is to practice patience and love and kindness and acceptance. That's my job. And I only have to go so far as I can. That's what the journey is about at this stage, right? Is I can only go so far as I can. Let me see how far I can go. How far can I be pushed? At what point do I have enough confidence as a person in the truth of my experience as the absolute to let go of the person entirely? It's that process, that dynamic that's playing out now. So these are the kinds of lessons you find yourself standing in. It's just stand in it. Just two. It's a stage. There are so many stages, right? So many stages, and they just keep coming. There's never really an end. But it's just, again, that little sliver of conscious awareness that, you know, even when you're in the worst moment, because you've had the experience, it's just, there's something there in the background. Something there in the background. You can just you can turn around and see it and say, oh yeah, that's right. It's not that big of a deal. Whatever. But I had somebody, I was doing a talk a couple of months ago at the New Way Pod, and you know, I was talking about these things, and this person was saying, well, isn't it supposed to be more than that? I mean, I feel like it's supposed to be more than that, and you know, I've had this. And I'm like, that's great. I mean, if you feel like there's something inside you right now that's having difficulty with what I'm saying, that's about seeing whether or not you're strong in your truth. If there's something in you that feels like what I'm saying is knocking over your truth, you need to look at that. That's your work right now. If you feel uncomfortable with your truth because of something I said, it means you don't have your truth held quite the way that you're meant to hold. Maybe it's not your truth. Maybe you still have a little bit further to go. Maybe you're not quite where you thought you were. Maybe none of us are where we think we are. Maybe when we shut off the thinking mind, we figure out who we are, and then there's nothing left to worry about. We just keep moving with what is, picking it up and putting it down, picking it up and putting it down without being attached to any of it. Without being attached to any of it. And people would love to tell you how you should be. Always. Everybody loves to assert themselves on others. And when you've had that experience of awakening and you've moved through some of these stages, you just say, okay. Then we get into the conversation about surrender. What is? This is what it is, you know. Oh, this too. Now this, and now this, and now this, and now this, and now. Oh, that's the roller coaster. And it's all good. It's you know, embracing that with that joyous, you know, all right, I wonder where this is going to go. I wonder where this is going to go. I wonder, you know, and when suddenly you get to that place where you're like, my pain and suffering keeps setting me more and more free, and it's like, I want more. Give me. You start to realize you're inviting everything you need to break yourself out. To you know, it's like, you know, you're smuggling, you know, all the things into the prison of your own mind that you need in order to break through the bars, you know. You know, that's what we're doing. We're inviting all the things that we need in order to free ourselves. We're being given all the things that we need in order to free ourselves. It's all the same thing. So yeah.
Okay, that word that you're talking about, people telling you that, you know, they don't think that you care about people or situations. So I came across this, the definition of the word care. It says, a concerned or troubled state of mind as that arising from a serious responsibility or worry, an objection or a source of worry, tension. So when you have that awakening, you realize that, no, I'm not worried for you. So the word care really takes on a completely different meaning completely, because you're like, no, I really don't care, because I'm not in control from any of this stuff. I'm not worried about you. Everything's exactly the way it should be, even if you don't think it, right?
Yeah.
So when I came across it, I was like, wow, I got to add this to my list of words that they don't serve me. So the word care doesn't serve me. The word hope doesn't serve me either, because that also puts a bit of doubt into the situation, right? Oh, I hope this is going to happen, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen, but I hope it does. Oh, I have no control over that.
Right.
I try not to use those words.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Well, another interesting aspect, and it goes to kind of what you're saying, another interesting, when you have that experience of emptiness, and it's not emptiness, right? It's not. It's,
Right.
it's empty of the conceptual self, but full of the presence of being. And, you know, it's both at the same time. But when you recognize I'm empty of the conceptual self, it's my conceptual self that keeps getting me in trouble, but the conceptual self isn't real, and then you look at other people going through all these difficulties, and your conceptual self isn't real either. And so from that place, you're like, I'm okay with everything that's happening to me. It's no big deal. You just have a different perspective. Your stuff isn't really a big deal either. It's not. It's only a big deal because you think it is. But you're attached to that, and I can't help you. So all I can do is be here and say it's okay. Is it? But yeah, I mean, it can be tough to be in that place. It can be. But you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone. You know,
I'll start a support group.
I think it's one of those.
Anonymous.
I think it's one of those
That's AA.
stages.
That is AA.
I think it's one of those stages that, you know, we all have to go through. We all have to go through it.
That's me.
It's like, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with just being present and not really, being a participant unless somebody approaches me or.
That's right.
Like-
When somebody comes out of the fog.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. When somebody comes out of the fog and I feel the move to interact with this person, but when I don't feel that, I'm fine just being present.
Yep.
But it seems like other people are like,
I know you, I know your history, right? So I can tell you this. The fear of those people is that they're only being able to base it on what they know of you historically, and they don't understand what an awakening is. And a lot of the traits that are coming out of the awakening are very similar to the same type of behaviors that were before, except now are healthy and before they were not.
Yeah,
So
that's a good
people
point.
are going to react to you as of like, wait a minute, is this kicking? Are you sure it's not that? And it's like, because that's the only concept that they can bounce it off of.
right,
You know, so they're still working within the limits of how they perceive you in contrast to how you are really you yourself now.
Hmm?
You know, so it is caring from their end, see, because they are worried, which from you to them is not, I don't really care about you because
Right.
I'm not worried because everything's just fine.
Yeah.
And there's that, you know, it's like, that's the best that I can do with that. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But because I went through the process before I came to the acceptance of like, yes, something did happen, this is between us. Yes, definitely. You know, before, even when you first called me about meditating, I had to kind of bounce it, what is really going on? And now it's all of a sudden this came in, it's like, okay, is this really what's going on? But now that I've seen you over time, you know, it's like, definitely. But learning to, like, I can transition through the process. Most people are going to still be stuck, because they don't even know about this stuff. So there's, you know, they're
Yeah.
still going to
And I
be
mean,
in judgment mode of like, yeah, okay.
well, I don't really care if they're judging me.
It's not
I mean,
right.
I don't.
And that's the thing. But however you did, when you started, you did care about
Oh,
the perception.
absolutely, I was extremely self-conscious,
Yeah.
but anyway, we
Yeah.
don't sidebar.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up or share or? So like I said, this is one way of approaching the subject. I'm actually really looking forward to next week because I think that when trying to express these things using words to explain what it is, they contain a lot of paradox, they can create challenges for people, they can be confusing. At the same time, all of that is serving its purpose. But I think that from the perspective that we're going to examine this stuff from next week, it's a radical shift into, instead of here are all the things it is, it's here are all the things it isn't. And here's how to strip away the layers, because that's what it is. It's, you know, we're caught in the conceptual self, and, you know, a lot of the conversations that we have are about, well, what is the conceptual self and how do I move past it, and what is the experience of being beyond it and all of that. Whereas next week's talk is going to be, you know, what what's your name? What's your political affiliation? What's your, are these really who you are? We get to the party and somebody goes, hi, my name is Joe, and here's what I do for a living. And is that who you are? Is that who we all are? So, but we're going to look at this from the position of there's a Hindu practice, the neti neti, right? So not this, not that. Being able to look consciously with awareness at any particular identity that we find ourselves in, being able to look at it thoroughly and cast it off as not this, not that. And there is a very powerful, it's a very powerful process that can lead people directly into awakening. And I've seen some beautiful things in some of the videos I've watched around, this particular practice being used. And it is what I did when I had my awakening. I just didn't know I was doing it. So, well, thank you everybody for coming tonight.
What is